Good afternoon or good morning to those of you on the West Coast. My name's Amber Kegley. I'll be your moderator for today's Taco Bout series featuring Samsung, and we're discussing manufacturing today. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and just set some ground rules. So we have a couple things to mention. One, everybody's mics will be muted out. So if you do have questions, please put them in the chat box, and we'll go ahead and answer those as quickly as possible. In the occasion that we cannot get to all the questions, we just ask, you do ask the questions, and we'll get back to you as soon as we're able at the end of the session. So you'll be reached or contacted, excuse me, by one of our TRG reps directly after the call. Also, in regards to the gift cards, if you attend the entire session today, we will be sending you a Grubhub gift card, and we'll be sending those out within 3 business days after today's presentation. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So our topics today is planned maintenance. You know, there's a lot of preventative maintenance as well as predictive maintenance that we're going to talk through, understand what those differences are. We're going to talk through augmented reality, and I know personally that's something that excites me. We're seeing it more and more in the manufacturing space and have a lot of customers looking at the different applications and different technology behind it. The warehouse moves, understanding how the product really moves from one facility into the customer's hands, and how Samsung's aiding in those efforts. Wi-Fi challenges and how they're increasing into today's security challenges as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So as soon as we get these introductions going, we'll get into the presentation. And Kevin, I'm going to kick it over to you if you want to introduce yourself, and then Mike, you can follow.
Thank you, Amber, and thank you, Mike, for having me here today. As mentioned, my name is Kevin Eaton. I'm the head of business development and alliances in the US for Samsung's mobile division. I've been with Samsung for 2.5 years in sales and BD roles. Prior to joining Samsung, I spent over 20 years in both the reseller and carrier space in various sales and leadership roles at Nextel, T-Mobile, and Amazon. I'm excited to discuss some of the trends in manufacturing today and how Samsung's line of rugged mobile devices, including smartphones, tablets, and wearables, can benefit companies by increasing productivities and lowering operating costs.
Thanks, Kevin. It's a pleasure to work with both you and Amber today. So I appreciate it. Samsung, you know, has such a household name. I don't know too many people that don't have at least one Samsung TV in their house. And
I have 5, Mike. I have 5.
There you go.
Well, thank you, Amber.
You know, I'm not going to admit all my brands, but I definitely have some Samsung. So at any rate. But you know, TRG is a little less known, you know, out in the space. So I'm going to try to educate you quickly on what we do. I'm the VP of Sales. I've been in technology sales. I know it's hard to believe, but for 30+ years. And you know, I look way too young for that. I know, right? Sure. I've worked for companies like Zebra and Scion and others. About 3.5 years ago, I made a transition to work for an integrator in TRG. And it was a great move for me in the fact that I'm not limited to the types of solutions I could sell just by the hardware mix that we had, for example, at Zebra. There's a lot of opportunities out there in a variety of verticals. We do work with retailers. We do work with distribution, transportation, and other verticals. Today, we're here to focus on manufacturing.
Before we get into the plant maintenance applications, I do have a question for you. So Samsung is traditionally known as an end user kind of consumer grade product, right? Not typically known for its manufacturing space. And I think you guys are making a lot of advancements. I know TRG is working with you guys on a lot of solutions. You really are in the manufacturing space as a key player. And I think it'd be worth the audience understanding what you guys are doing in that space and really why Samsung.
Thanks, Amber. I think, you know, it's you know, everyone knows Samsung really from the consumer space, but I don't think people realize how large Samsung is and how ingrained we are in manufacturing. To the extent that we're a global leader in manufacturing. We have 116,000 manufacturing workers globally in 7 different research and manufacturing facilities around the world. We produce 450 million devices annually. We're the 3rd largest in global manufacturing. So not only are we walking the walk, we're talking the talk as well. And we have manufacturing solutions out there that we've brought to the market because we've utilized them ourselves, and we know that they're effective, and we know we can help manufacturing companies solve their problems because we've had similar problems.
Great, thank you. And Mike, I'll turn it to you here to kick off plant maintenance applications, if you don't mind.
Plant maintenance is a critical component to any manufacturer's operation, right? How you execute it is actually more important. So I'm going to talk a little bit about preventative maintenance. Pretty much like you have an automobile where you have to change the oil and the spark plugs. When it comes to your plant, you have to maintain your assets, right? You got to keep them up and running. And some of the benefits to doing those kind of things is you're going to reduce downtime. Some studies say as much as 25%. You're going to extend the life of the equipment. Some studies say as much as 10%. The ROI is usually relatively quick. And when you maintain your equipment, you're going to have a better overall run facility. You're not reacting to something breaking. You're taking care of it before it does, hopefully. So, and if you think about things like in the process manufacturing arena, if I'm a food manufacturer and I have a machine fail, depending on what that failure is, I could end up with metal parts, for example, in a food product, which you don't want, or plastics in a drink product, or whatever it is. And you got to prevent that kind of stuff, because that ends up, you end up with recalls. They can be very costly. What a lot of people refer to these systems as, SAP specifically calls their version of it PM, plant maintenance, but it supports preventative maintenance. IBM has Maximo, right? A lot of these systems are starting to be relabeled as computerized maintenance management systems, right? So, the key is to keep the plant running optimally so you don't have failures. My brother-in-law was once responsible for a machine that produced $2,500 in profits an hour. It ran 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So if that machine went down, that company was very concerned about that. And in those days, they didn't really have PMs per se. It was kind of when the machine broke, they went and fixed it, right? You want to try to avoid that. So, and I'll let Kevin talk about predictive maintenance.
No, thanks, Mike. I think that's great. And when you get into preventative maintenance, as Mike said, with the oil change, and you're not necessarily squeezing out the maximum usable life of that machine. You're making those changes. You're taking down the equipment. Sometimes before it needs to be taken down, you're ordering parts and keeping them on hand, which is freeing up, which is tying up capital, which might not be needed for a long time. So when you really get into predictive maintenance, it's really taking a look at all of your assets on the floor and utilizing IIoT, or Industrial Internet of Things, utilizing sensors, monitoring the machines, and gathering all that data. It's using machine learning as well, so it continues to improve over time. But one of the great parts about it is you're now actually fixing and having to repair the machine. It's going to tell you, hey, it looks like something might be coming. There could be a part that needs to be fixed. Now you can actually go ahead and order that part and get that on order, get it replaced with minimal downtime. So you're getting maximum productivity out of your devices. And when you look at it from a mobile standpoint, when you get into predictive maintenance, if you have a tablet, you have a smartphone, you have a watch, you get the alert immediately. Hey, there's something going on. I need to see what it is. I go over to the machine. Oh, it looks like this needs to be done. Right from my device, I can interact with that data. I can order the parts, submit it in for approval to supervisors to sign off on, and boom, everything gets done immediately. You're not having to take things down for an extended period of time. And anytime a machine goes down, it's costing, thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending on the size of your business.
Right. Yeah. And one of the technologies I've seen recently, Amber, be used is we just had a customer roll out RFID tags to actually label every asset with an RFID tag. And they didn't go with the standard RFID tag. They went with high frequency as opposed to UHF. And the reason they did that is it forces the employee to be right on top of that asset to read it, right? If I can read an asset from far away, I might read it and say I did some work to it and not really have been there, possibly, right? Not that anyone would do that, but with the high frequency, you actually have to be right up on the tag to read it, and it at least says you were right there. So anyway, just throwing it out there. We just saw one of our food process manufacturers implement that technology for doing plant maintenance. So.
And Mike actually had a customer there is a customer question out here right now, and you sort of answered it, but one of the questions around services, does TRG offer preventative maintenance services? I know just from my standpoint and my role within TRG, I know it varies from manufacturer to manufacturer and what we're able to do, but we do partner with all the manufacturers in providing services. Can you allude to some of the different preventative maintenance service options, out there that customers, high level, we can certainly circle back with this individual directly, but I think from a high level, it might be beneficial.
Yeah, well, if you just think about things like, we're in the mobile space, we're in the barcode space. So think about your barcode printers, for example. I mean, again, if you're actually executing PMs on them, you're less likely to have a major failure, right? At least go out, have somebody come out, clean the print head, replace the print heads, things like that, make sure the motors are working, the belts are right, all those kind of things. So that's an example of an area where we actually provide field services to go out and do those kind of things to make sure people's equipment's running optimally. We also kind of do it. It's not necessarily a PM but we go out and focus on wireless to make sure people have wireless, connectivity that is in working order and giving them the optimal performance of all the machines, all the IoT stuff they might potentially have, and just make sure everything's working right.
Great, thank you. Augmented reality, Kevin, it's a huge topic. I know even within TRG and people think of augmented reality, you got the crazy headsets, but I think it's so much more in today's, especially our industry and the technology world, right? How we're seeing these applications put into different areas, especially manufacturing. Do you want to talk us through what you're seeing from Samsung and what Samsung's doing within the augmented reality space?
Absolutely. Thanks, Amber. I would say, when you get into augmented reality, I think most people, as you mentioned, think of it more on a consumer side. You're wearing the goggles and you're playing a game and you're seeing everything in the world around you. It's similar to an extent within the manufacturing and the industrial space, but there's some interesting things that are going on, especially, COVID brought these things out and it's only continued to progress. So what we've seen, one is a couple studies to set the table here. Gallup recently said that 75% of millennials will be in the workplace by 2030. And millennials were born on technology. They're used to having devices in their hands and utilizing technology. With that, another study from Power Engineering said that 40% of the workforce is eligible for retirement within the next 10 years. So these are the people that have been out there, that have the experience, that have all of the knowledge. These are the experts. And they didn't get raised on technology. They were brought into technology later on. So most of the knowledge that they have when they go out to repair a piece of equipment, whether it's local or they have to get on an airplane and travel to do that, requires them to go out there, and they have to use the knowledge that they have. Now, what happened with COVID? Everything got shut down. There was really no travel. Nobody wanted somebody coming into their location because there wasn't a vaccine. So augmented reality started to really pick up a lot. Being able to utilize a tablet, a smartphone, or even a headset that you can wear to be able to show somebody in a different place. So you'd have a junior technician maybe in Detroit and your experts in California. They can work along the problem with you. They can see what you see. They're able to mark up on the screen what needs to be repaired. There's even the possibility of with augmented reality of when they look at that piece of equipment, it pops up the service guide or a knowledge base of information on how to fix it. So this is becoming a lot more prevalent. And what started out as a, sort of a see what I see has really turned into taking it to that next step of, hey, I have to do this. What else can I do with it? What else can I connect with it? And it even goes back to our last conversation around predictive maintenance. The machine goes down. I can now look at it with my tablet and it'll tell me the insides of the machines. It could tell me how long that machine's been running for, depending on the RFID sensors and information that's being captured. So augmented reality continues to grow. Samsung partners with several different providers of augmented reality solutions out there. They all work really well on our rugged portfolio and our consumer portfolio of products.
Right. That's good stuff, Kevin. By the way, I saw a Gartner study that was saying that in 2019, about 10% of field service techs were using mobility with things like augmented reality. And by 2025, that number will be over 50%. So that talks to the growth you're talking about.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing that I heard recently was that, and I think this study was done recently, but worldwide business research data that 61% of leaders are stating that augmented reality is critical to their strategy. I mean, if you think about, how business has changed, post-COVID, I think, Mike, I believe you're a road warrior like I have been for most of my career. And over the last year, we've gotten a lot of business done sitting in front of a screen like this. And, you look at it from an augmented reality or a business perspective, instead of having to send that technician across the country or across the world, they might have to quarantine. But the cost of doing that versus having that expertise being able to be transferred remotely is huge. And I think the other piece is those sessions can all be captured and created into a knowledge base. So as your experienced technicians, experts are retiring, that knowledge is still here. It's not lost.
Good point.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. When it comes to warehouse moves, obviously getting devices, product into a consumer's hand or end user's hand is key, right? It's part of what the warehouse is, the fundamental component of a warehouse, right? So Mike, do you mind walking us through the different warehouse moves from start to finish?
Yeah, sure. In your manufacturing plant, typically what I've seen is a raw materials warehouse and a finished goods warehouse, not always, but commonly. And there are in process manufacturing, a lot of times they're receiving bulk product, bulk raw materials, right? And but in a lot of different types of manufacturing, they're receiving palletized. So when you're receiving a pallet of product, you want to be able to receive that in an efficient way. Typically what we're seeing is, and by the way, there's, I happen to carry a Samsung S20. There's a good knowledge base out there, as you said earlier, Amber, in the consumer market. So why not put a Samsung tablet, where your IT folks know how to use it, and they understand iOS, and it's simple to use, on a fork truck with a barcode scanner, a Bluetooth barcode scanner, or potentially an RFID reader. Actually some of the bulk receiving that goes on out there is actually done with RFID. But when you think of a pallet being picked up by a fork truck, I'm gonna take that raw material, I'm gonna put it away, typically, unless I need it right on my manufacturing line, which sometimes happens. I'm then gonna pick for production. I'm going to produce. I'm going to track everything through that process, right? Once I've got the product produced, I may put it away again in the finished goods warehouse. I may ship it to a distribution center down the street, or I may ship it directly to the customer, depending on what it is. But bottom line is that Samsung has a tablet that can go on a fork truck and handle the rigors of a warehouse and actually allow you to do those kind of moves, right? So through the use of, like I said, a Bluetooth barcode scanner, and then, potentially RFID equipment. So anyway, so that's kind of what typical moves we see in a warehouse environment and in a production environment.
I think that's great, Mike. And what I've seen recently is with the, when you talk about the forklifts before, a lot of the forklifts might have an older computer mounted onto them. It's probably Windows based. It's probably been there for a long time. It requires the forklift's power to actually power that device. It's not removable. It's costly to keep up. Where we're seeing a lot of companies now saying, hey, I don't want to maintain, another Windows device on the forklift. I want to be able to have some type of multi-function to do scanning, to do inventory, to do picking, to do work orders, to do all these different tasks, but have it removable. And that's where, Samsung has been able to help a lot of these companies replace the older computers with tablets that are ruggedized. They're military standard specs. They're IP68. What does that mean? Dust, water, dirt, drop protection. These are made to work in these heavy duty environments, and you can use them while wearing gloves. You can interact with them. We have the ability now with the new Tab Active 3 that you can actually, utilize the power of the device and not actually have a battery in it. Some companies utilize. You can remove it from, the forklift to do scanning, to do the work orders. So we're seeing a lot of that. One of the other interesting pieces, things that we've seen is worker safety. When you're operating a forklift, there are some forklift workers, when you're giving them technology, they're paying attention more to the screen than they are to what is in front of when they're driving. That can be very dangerous for people walking, or for products, or for shelving, if these people aren't looking where they're going. So we've actually worked with another partner to create a product that while that vehicle is in motion, or that forklift is in motion, it blanks the screen out. It won't let them interact. So it keeps their focus on driving and not on the tablet.
Right. Kevin, you just mentioned safety, and actually a lot of companies actually have a forklift checklist before you even get on it in the morning, and those kind of things could be displayed. That'd be a convenient time to take that tablet off, go around, do your checklist, put the tablet back on, and now you go do your work, right? So
absolutely. Yeah, and I think the checklist and the tablets, I think, they even go further. When you look at the different warehouse moves, and the the finished products are stored, now they're being taken off the shelf. There's different pick and pack solutions, whether it's voice or whether it's tablet or phone based, where they're writing down the inventory and doing it all real time. So you can actually track all of this in real time, know where everything is, and even as a consumer, know when your product, or an end customer, I should say, know when that product has been picked, when it's on the dock for shipping, and when it comes to me.
Absolutely.
And Mike, we had a question come in here. I apologize because I was writing it down as you guys were talking, but does TRG offer any solution architecting or installation services? You had alluded to the professional service offering in an earlier slide, but more so along the lines, of solution architecting.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the things we do is we go out and we analyze what you have now. To Kevin's point, you might have an old Windows device. Maybe you haven't jumped into fork truck mounts yet. Maybe you've used handhelds most of the time. But yeah, we'll come out. We'll look at the truck. If you do want to keep the trickle charge going on your tablet, you can do that from the truck if you want. You don't have to, as Kevin said. But we'll analyze power requirements, mounting options. Where's the best place to mount it so that it's not in the way of the user as they're driving, right? What type of scanner. So we can architect all that. We can install all that as well. So if you use a RAM mount or whatever type of mount you use, we can drill the holes, put that in on your fork truck so that you've got a stable solution that's going to hold up for years to come. So.
Great. And our final slide here in regards to Wi-Fi and the challenges. Mike, do you want to kick things off here? And I know it goes right into the security side. And Kevin, you're going to touch on that. But Mike, why don't you get us started?
Sure. I mean, look, the majority of customers inside the four walls, typically are going to use Wi-Fi, right? However, when you have large plants that are spread out, there could be assets on the facility that aren't really in a building. You could have holding tanks that you need to check. You could have other things that you need to check. So the two types of wireless, obviously, primarily are Wi-Fi and LTE, right? I'm gonna focus on the Wi-Fi piece. Bottom line is, people tend to move things around. They move racking around. They bring in new machinery. They do different things. They update machinery, and they tend not to focus on the wireless when they do. And then they start running and they find out that they have some gaps in coverage, or they have some challenges with devices maybe roaming from one Wi-Fi access point to the other. So generally speaking, what our recommendation is stay on top of the technology, have the latest Wi-Fi security standards, right? Do site surveys, make sure that you're not just adding an access point every time you have a problem, because if you do that, you're going to create more problems. What you should really do is survey, make sure you have the right amount of equipment with the right type of antennas, and it's the best way to approach Wi-Fi. So TRG obviously offers services in that area. I mentioned that earlier, but we can certainly help put up a plan. And we're used to doing, there's a lot of companies that can do Wi-Fi in office buildings. Plants tend to be a little different, a little more challenging. You're dealing with different heights of ceilings and a variety of other things. A lot of plants started out as something small that grew and grew and grew, and they just added on buildings, right? So we're used to doing those types of surveys in those types of environments. So that's really what we're good at.
No, that's great, Mike. And with most manufacturing companies, and the vast majority, are using Wi-Fi in the manufacturing environments. There are some that are starting to look at, can I utilize LTE in my manufacturing facility for different reasons? Some could be that Wi-Fi isn't penetrating or getting to a certain area of a plant or manufacturing floor. And so can LTE enhance that? And so we're seeing customers and companies looking to evaluate LTE solutions, whether it's private LTE or even carrier LTE solutions that can help them solve some of those challenges. And that I think goes into some of the security pieces as well. Obviously, Wi-Fi and LTE are both extremely secure and are as secure as you want to make them. And when you utilize, Samsung's devices, most people don't realize how secure Samsung devices really are. While we're built on the Google platform, Samsung devices are built with what's called Knox, similar to Fort Knox, in the most secure vault in the world. The security is built into every device, from the hardware chip all the way up to isolate, to encrypt and secure your data. It's multi-layered on top of hardware and software, ensuring that everything you're doing on your devices that's going through, your devices are secured. How secure are they, you might ask? Many of the US government's three-letter agencies are utilizing Samsung devices in their environments today. It's got FIPS, SOC 2, DISA, you name the certification, we more than likely have it on our devices. Further, we can help with, and I know TRG can help with as well, in terms of, hey, I need to add new devices into my environment. How can I do that in bulk? So, Samsung offers the Knox suite of products that will allow them to do mobile device management. Wider ranges of IT policies can be integrated with their existing MDM. We have ePhoto, so if you're deploying a large number of devices out there, Sometimes you have custom apps. You don't necessarily want an end user updating that device in the middle of a shift and then find out later that, oh, we didn't have a chance to test our custom solution with the new software. Or you have other users, on the other hand, that never upgrade a device. And so they're running security patches that are a year old. So with the ePhoto product, that gives the IT administrator full control to be able to, test everything and then push out the updates and make them mandatory where they automatically go. Maybe it's at 3 a.m. when the shifts are all shut down. And so those devices are secured at all times.
Right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I know we're up against time here, so I apologize. But before I close this out, I do have a question for each of you. And I guess it will be, if I could sum this up in the easiest way is, what would be the key takeaway for anyone listening into this webinar today? Well, one thing, if you could have them take away from this presentation, what would it be? Mike, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah, I think bottom line is there's a lot that goes on in most manufacturing plants. From receiving to work in progress to all those things, and to Kevin's point on predictive maintenance, you really want to make sure that you're managing all your assets, all your equipment properly. And some of the new technologies with IoT make that an easier thing to do than in the past. 25 years ago, a lot of plant maintenance ended up being reactive. Something broke, we got to go fix it, and we're starting to get away from that. And companies are becoming more productive today. So yeah, I think that that's kind of my biggest takeaway.
Kevin?
So I think my biggest takeaway is, we've talked about a lot of different things that are happening and trends that we're seeing in manufacturing. The vast majority of manufacturers probably haven't done and made any moves yet to implement many of these solutions that we've talked about. But I don't want to scare them away. I want to let them know that, Samsung and TRG, we are here to help them, to guide them, to bring that expertise to them, to help bring them up from where they are today in their industry 3.0 to 4.0 journey, and help work with them to make the best decisions possible for their future. So if they do have questions, they're able to reach out to either Samsung or TRG to help with those requests.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you both. We really appreciate, on behalf of the entire TRG team, Mike, of course, we appreciate you taking time out of your day. And Kevin, thank you. Samsung's a valued partner with TRG, and we're doing some great things together. And we're here to help our customers and to continue that growth and those efforts. And for everyone joining in today, if you did submit questions, there's a couple that came in on the Wi-Fi challenges slide. We will get to you individually. We'll reach out after this presentation with our responses. Join us for our next Taco Bout series on July 27th, and you'll see the chat registration link right in the chat box. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.